Okay. Day 2, talk number 4. The man, the myth, the legend, Luiz Otavio Barros. Amazing. So I wanted to go to see this, not because, well, I mean, who doesn't fangirl over Luis? I mean, he's great. He's just kind, and it's easy to listen to him. But he was giving a talk called Seven Things You Always Wanted to Know About ELT. Oh goodness, hang on, the thing was too long. About publishing. Oh, sorry. Let me start again. Seven things you always wanted to know about the publishing world, but were afraid to ask. Now, I did see this talk last year at the online Breast Teasel International Conference. However, I think pretty sure, and he confirmed it today that he was going through some emotionally. He wasn't in a really good point, and he was having some personal issues, and so Luis was super honest and upfront about it, and I think it was just refreshing to see somebody like, I'm going through something. So I wanted to go see this again. And he talked about this in the beginning, that he wanted to give it this talk again because he's in a much better place now, which is fantastic. And I'm so happy for him that he's in a better place. And I wanted to see what that meant. Because it was clear that he was struggling a little bit, and it's just unfortunate. And everybody needs a little assistance, and he's such a wonderful person, and obviously a great influence in the ELT world here in Brazil and abroad. But yeah, so it was interesting to see how much a year can make, like the difference a year can make, and how important it is to be in really like a healthy mental state of mind, um, to be able to produce some of your best work and to be really, on point. Not that his talk last year was bad. It was just he was a different person, and it was night and day clear, and he was, yeah. So it's interesting to see that, when people are at their what they feel is their worst, and when people what they feel is their better. So it was good to see. So let's talk about it. So he pretty much was talking about well, because I mean, if you live in Brazil, you should know Luiz Otavio has amazing books. And he's got the one for academic and the one for phrasal verbs. He's a self-published author on Amazon, and of course, he has years and years of experience. I think he was saying over when he started writing his own materials, it was after 10 years of producing in-house materials for Cultura Inglesa. So obviously, clearly experienced in so there was a couple, because I think most people were able to watch last year, and the clear things that I got from this was just like really good for me. So first of all, being a native speaker, I love when people just are like, listen, natives are not the benchmark. Like, they're not the point of, some of them are, but some non-natives are too. It's like, I just love when we're like, yeah, can we just please renegotiate this whole idea of native, non-native? And I love that he brought it up, because it was, he said something very poignant, which was, there are different kinds of proficiency, which I find to be absolutely amazing and spot on, because as a person that grew up in an English language speaking environment, there's some things that I have like intuition about, or just kind of, I know, but I don't really know why. That type of, do you know, I mean, anybody who speaks a language has that in their mother tongue. But non-native speakers have a different kind of proficiency, because they've had to learn it. They've looked at the language as a system, and they've had to learn it as such. And so they have much more insight into different things than I would. And so I think that that's really important to look at it that way, that they are a different kind of proficiency. And it's not the dichotomy of good or bad or better and worse. Like it's just different because the way that you've learned it. So and he said he's learned a lot from, native speakers, and I'm sure native speakers have learned a lot from him. So then there was the elephant in the room, which was, what do you believe about second language acquisition? And yeah, I was having a conversation earlier in the conference about this, and I think it's really important that people need to start thinking about, like, what's your teaching philosophy? It was me. Oh, I gotta love the BSIG, so I have to just kind of shout out to the BSIG, myself, Carla at Save Me Teacher, Hey Carla Brooms, and Isabel Badra. And we were sitting and having lunch. And we were talking about this. It was unrelated to materials development, but we were talking about this because we were saying that you can't just follow trends and just do whatever and create whatever, because it's really kind of unsustainable in our profession. You're just going to get burnt out. And so people need to have this, your teaching philosophy. You need to be able to say, like, what do I believe? Like what, and you, so what you have to do is go through these types of readings or courses or self-research, however you want to do it. But how do you believe people, and I know second language acquisition, SLA, is under attack now, and we're trying to, because we don't necessarily acquire it, blah blah blah. I get it. So I don't know what term to use at this point. So SLA, for now, it's July 14th, 2022. So I apologize if it's changed. So yeah, I think that's really important that people study for themselves how they think people learn and acquire a new language, and what does that mean for you in a teaching practice, because that is a long lasting and kind of a career type of belief system that probably will change because of your experience, because of exposure, because of new scientific developments, because of research, etc. But if you don't know it, like, where are you going to go? What are you going to do if you don't know your beliefs? So, then there was a point about, we were talking about the markets, or he was talking about the markets, I should say. And he said it's an 80-20 rule, which I thought was interesting. So 80% has to be what the market is used to if you want to self-publish. And so 80% has to be the standard that is now. And the market will accept 20% of change. So if you think that you're going to go into the market and be uber successful because you've revolutionized something, probably not. Because the revolutionary things, especially in like materials writing, if you're going to like publishers, it doesn't seem as if they're very revolutionary. It seems like very small incremental changes. And so as long as you're okay if you have a long career, over the course of the career, then you can, say that you can contribute to major changes in the education system. But currently that's according to Luis, it's kind of an 80-20 rule in terms of market. So there's a little leniency, but not a lot of flexibility. Um, the other thing he was talking about was working with editors and how we need to kind of remove, I think in general, people just need to hear this message. Not even people who are working on materials, but if you're interested in self-publishing, that we need to remove us as people with the work that we're producing, the materials that we're producing. And so he said pretty much he hates the adjectives because adjectives are very subjective. It's like so hard to kind of pin down what does it mean to be an adjective. And then and focus more on what works. Does this work? Because I wrote it down. I wanted to quote him here. He said, your lesson is a product that will have an end user. And so we need to look at what works, not what's fun or if it's good or if it's beautiful and the pictures and this, that, and that. Like what works. Meaning, does this have a function? Does this work? Is it doing what we're intending it to do? If it does, then great. If it doesn't. And so looking at materials from that perspective, because if you're developing materials, you're developing them to sell. That, I mean, it is a business. So looking at it that way, what works? What works? Um, and so yeah, he also talked about, what obviously. So thinking about, what what you believe, that type of thing. He had some balloons that he was just popping because the industry just shattered some ideas for him and shattered some dreams. What you can control and what you cannot. And so there's a lot of things, especially in the materials writing industry, when you're working with large publishers, that you can't control. The editors have vast amounts of creative control in kind of the direction of where materials are going, and you're going to be producing. You can control the things that are happening on a very small scale as compared to the editors. So if you're okay with doing that, then that's fine. If you're not okay with doing that, then you have to rethink if that's going to be something that's fulfilling for you. And where do you stand on the issues? That was the other thing. So where do you stand on this? How would you feel about creating some material that you maybe personally you don't believe in the methodology or the theory behind it? Is that going to be okay for you? Because again, you're producing materials as a product. It has an end user. It has to be scalable. You have to be able to sell it at the end of the day. There was some discussion. So overall, it was good because it kind of gets you to think from another perspective. If you want to be a self-publisher, if you want to work with materials development, if you want to be with those publishers and the big publishing houses and things like that, there's things that you need to consider. You don't have total autonomy, even if you're self-publishing. Because even if you're self-publishing, one of the recommendations that he had was that you need to get an editor. Because if you look at something, you're looking at it from only one perspective. You need to have that balance, that wall to throw these ideas against and see what sticks and see what doesn't. And from what he said, the editor clearly needs to be not focused on like, oh, this is good, this is wonderful, this is fun. And needs to be focused on, does this work? Is this scalable? Does this make sense? Can we put this out into the market? And does it do what it's supposed to do? So there was some discussion at the end. No consensus was reached because, oh God, I just think sometimes we get a little lost. We just don't even know anymore. We also don't have a lot of the data about what the future of materials looks like, if it's going to stay paper-based, book-based, or if it's going to move more towards like the digital ideas, and what does that mean? So is there going to be platforms? Is it going to be content creation? How are people going to get the materials? In terms of, if we look at the business English, I had conversations with University of Cambridge, the representatives, the sponsors here, University of Cambridge, Macmillan, Pearson, and Oxford. None of which had new things coming out. That's a lie. Pearson had a couple new lines. So excuse me, sorry, Pearson. I had a lengthy conversation with a person at Cambridge, and he said that they're scaling down, from what he knows, they're scaling down the materials, the printed materials, and there's not a lot of interest in them. And I just found that to be shocking. One, because maybe the reason that they're not looking for those materials is because the materials aren't written with the idea of a function. Like, does this work? Does this make sense? Perhaps that we need to start looking at, this is me rambling, these are ideas, so I'm not trying to make any suggestions. Perhaps we need to look at business as English as a business lingua franca, BELF or ELF. Perhaps we need to start thinking of new methodologies. Perhaps we need to start thinking of, instead of including so much grammar, and I know that we have the communicative approach, but most of the books that I've seen are still heavily based in this idea of grammar, and the grammar is the thing that kind of leads everything forward. And they're communicative to a point, but you know. So it makes me wonder, for business English specifically, what works and what people are interested in and what people are wanting in the market, and it's mostly based on student needs. And we know that it's English for specific purposes, and business English, it's challenging because we have individuals, and the individuals demands very specific things. But I think there has to be a solution. And I'm not sure, but I do believe that books will always be around. But I also think that digital platforms are a good solution, and they'll find support for it. So I'm gonna think on the idea of business English, and where is it going, and why are we so desperate to have good materials? And from the publishers that I talked to at the conference, they didn't have a lot to offer, in terms of new things coming out, new series coming out. And it seems as if a lot of them are scaling back. So I had some challenges with the big publishing houses. So trying to find, even if they brought samples of business English books. So things to think about. So thank you so much, Luiz Otavio, because I just was thinking about different things, but materials development is extremely important for me. I think it's interesting, and eventually, hopefully, I'll be able to make some content. But the talk was again entitled 7 Things You Always Wanted to Know About the Publishing World But Were Afraid to Ask. But I think it's good to be reflective of the materials too. So that's it for Mr. Barros. And I should say that he's fantastic. And if you have a chance, buy one of the books. They're great. I'm not trying to plug his products, but they are really good, and super helpful, and he's very kind. So if you have a chance, feel free to watch him, because he'll make you think. Okay, and that's it for Luis's talk.